You might hear a message. All right. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. I hope if this Wednesday's been treating you well. We are super excited to welcome back the second time Allison, Horst, and Ananya for a really exciting workshop, hands-on workshop, where we're going to learn how to actually write some JavaScript to produce interactive data visualizations using observable plots. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone of our code of conduct. Our Ladies is a global organization, and for our local chapter here in Santa Barbara, has created a code of conduct that everyone that participates in our meetups must agree to. There is a full version that we really encourage everyone to review. If you've been participating in our events in the past, and if it's your first time joining us, please take a look at that after today's event. But this is an excerpt from that code of conduct. It says, Our Ladies is dedicated to providing a harassment-free experience for everyone. We do not tolerate harassment of participants in any form. And the reason we do this is to ensure that the environment of our meetups is safe and friendly for all participants. We really, really value the experience that this Our Ladies group can bring to a lot of folks. And so we are excited to have you all join us in abiding by these rules. Oops. There it is. I briefly mentioned the last time, but if you didn't catch it, we do have a YouTube channel now. I created this little, what are these called? QR codes for it. So you can take a photo of that, or also just find the link on our meetup group and GitHub repo. This is a place where we'll be uploading all of our recordings from our virtual events. We do have a few past events that live there now. So if you are looking for them, you can find them in a single spot, which is great. We'll be sure to share this recording at that YouTube channel after today. So before I turn it over, I did just want to introduce our two speakers more formally. We're so stoked to have them both with us, beginning with Dr. Allison Horst. She is a data science advocate at Observable. She's most recently joined the team after a decade of teaching data science at UC Santa Barbara. One data related thing that she's really excited about is Observable Plot's new plot geomark, which makes building interactive maps in JavaScript seriously fun and borderline addicting. We also have Dr. Ananya, who is a user success engineer at Observable. Her background is in processing and visualizing seismic and geoscience data. She's inspired to see the data viz community push the limits of tools to explore and communicate with their creations. So we're really stoked to see all that come together in today's workshop. And with that, I will pass the screen sharing over to Allison.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Sam. All right, so I'll share hopefully this window. Can you see, are you seeing my slides now? You can hear me okay? All right, cool. Cool, thanks. Well, thanks for having us back. We're really excited to be here. Today, like Sam said, we're going to introduce Observable Plot as a way to add some JavaScript for data visualization to your data science toolkit. And how to make it interactive. So this is going to be mostly a code along. We have a few slides to start, but we'll get through those quickly so that we can actually start playing around in a notebook. Okay, so to go ahead and get started, why might you want to add some JavaScript skills to bolster and enhance your data visualization life? First, we want to say we think ggplot2 is awesome. So we think like ggplot2 is great. If it does all the things you need it to, awesome. As we start seeing more data visualizations that are built for the web and maybe adding animation and interactivity, oftentimes, even if you're doing it in R, some of the tools that you're using to add interactivity actually are JavaScript tools wrapped in R. So things like Plotly and HighCharter and Giraffe and HTML widgets. A lot of those actually are using JavaScript under the hood. And so if they have everything you need, that's awesome. Sometimes though, you might, and I think Tanya Shapiro, who you all might know from from Twitter making amazing custom visualizations in R and JavaScript, at one point posted like, at some point it just comes down to JavaScript, doesn't it? And I think like the more you do visualization and find yourself limited by some pre-existing things, the more you might find yourself thinking like, all right, maybe I'm just going to actually start building this using JavaScript so that it's in the language that makes things interactive on the web from the start. So if that's you, and if you want to learn some JavaScript, then luckily there are really nice tools to get you like pretty quickly from ggplot2 to add some JavaScript so that you can move in the direction of data visualizations for the web with interactivity. So I'll pass it off to Ananya to introduce the star library for today.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Allison. So Observable Plot, it's an open source visualization library, and it's built on top of this other library called D3JS, which you may have heard of. It's a visualization framework that's used very commonly for making very bespoke visualizations, and really anything that can be built in the browser, you can build with D3. So it's extremely powerful. But at the same time, because it's like that highly customizable, it's also kind of on the lower level of abstractions. And the nice thing about Observable Plot is it's built by the same team that wrote D3JS, but it's one step above D3JS on that ladder of abstraction. And so it's really neat for exploratory data viz when you just kind of trying to understand your data and try a bunch of different things. What I like about Observable is you can do so much with just a few lines of code, really. And I mean, since you folks from R, you like Allison introduced talked about ggplot2 already. It's kind of similar to that. It's also based on the grammar of graphics. So it's very composable, and it has a very memorable API. Yeah, Allison has more stuff to kind of help you translate what you already know in ggplot into the world of Observable Plot.
Yeah, so we hope that the takeaway for today will be like, oh, I think I kind of already know how this works if you've been working in ggplot, like, which is really cool to feel like, oh, this knowledge I've been building up about like how to build charts layer by layer, starting with like a mark, which in ggplot is the geoms, right? Starting with a mark and then adding like scales and transforms and customization, that you already have this like knowledge of that piecewise building up of charts for customization. And that is like exactly what Plot is using too. So it's both inspired by ggplot2 and the grammar of graphics, and also feels similar to working that way when you actually create stuff with Plot. And we also just want, first time I ever heard about Observable was through Quarto documentation. I was like, observe like in Quarto docs, because within Quarto documents there are OJS cells where you can actually include code to create, for example, charts with Observable Plot and add interactivity, like we're showing here today in Observable Notebooks. So we'll be working, and you can work alongside us today, and Ananya will introduce this more. We're going to be working in Observable Notebooks, but everything that you learn today, you can translate to work between the tools that you are happiest working in. But we're excited to show you kind of what Plot can do and how you can get started quickly. All right, so the last thing that we wanted to show, and then we're just going to jump in because we want this to be mostly follow along, is a minimum viable comparison for ggplot and Observable Plot. So what these are showing is side-by-sides using everybody's favorite and most inspired data set, cars, to create a scatter plot of car weight versus horsepower. And what this is doing is each layer highlights a different like major conceptual piece in the code that align across ggplot and observable plot. One thing I do try to highlight is like, are there some syntax differences? Yes. Are there sometimes more braces, brackets, and parentheses in JavaScript compared to R? Yes, but those are very minor things compared to like the overall structure of how these are built. And that's what we're going to focus on today, because we'll see that when we work in observable notebooks, plot snippets actually take away a lot of the like headache of trying to like create from scratch and align parentheses, because it'll pre-populate some code for you that you get to update, which is pretty nice. So let's dive into, for this minimum viable example, let's dive into what each of these things do and how they're similar. So in orange, when we use just ggplot, that's initializing a plot. And that's the same as when we see plot.plot in observable plot. It's like, hey, we're gonna make a visualization, so prepare to make a graphic. The next thing that we're doing is we are specifying the marks. And this is where there are places where the language differs a bit between the two. Like in ggplot, we'll call these like geoms or geometric shapes. In plot, they're called marks. But either way, what that's doing is saying this is how we are going to visually represent data in some space that we specify based on the data values. And both of those, like importantly, are specifying, for the most part, specifying marks instead of explicit chart types, for example. Like, for example, in observable plot, you would use plot dot dot, a dot mark, to make a scatter plot and to make a bubble plot on a map, which are two very different chart types, but they use the same mark. So it's this mark based and not explicit chart type way to create charts, which gives you a lot of flexibility and control over the types of charts that you can make and combine in really cool ways. So that's the second thing, is specifying the marks. That's what geom_point does to make a scatter plot in ggplot2. That's what observable plot does using the plot dot dot mark. The next thing is we're going to give it, now that we've said we're making a chart, that's 1, 2, what mark we're using. The third thing we need to make a minimum viable chart is what data are you using and what are the variables that you're going to be using to create that visualization. So here in pink, this is where we give it the data name, in this case cars. And then finally, we have this last piece, which is just saying what variables or properties are actually going to be where we're going to be grabbing the values from to actually create that mark in space based on those variable values. So there's some syntactical differences. You'll notice like there's quotations around the properties in the plot version versus they're just wrapped in AES within the ggplot2 version. So there's some minor syntax and punctuation differences, but the overall pieces here, hopefully this is a takeaway, is like the pieces that you add to create this scatter plot are the same across these two things. And that's true not just for scatter plots. That's like many different chart types you'll make. The pieces are going to be the same, whether you're working in ggplot2 or observable plot. There are times when things are exactly the same, use the same terminology as you would expect. There are times that they differ. So I just picked a few comparisons here to highlight kind of some really common options that exist in ggplot, and then how you would translate that into observable plot code. For example, like fill color, to update the fill color based on a variable or set it to a constant. In both ggplot and observable plot, we use fill. But to update mark outlines or line colors, where in ggplot we use color, in observable plot that option is called stroke. To update the size, for example, of a mark in ggplot2, like if you wanted to change the radius of a circle based on some variable value to make a bubble plot, you use size in ggplot and you use R for radius in observable plot. You use alpha for opacity in ggplot, it's just opacity in observable plot. And then you can see in orange here, I just have some differences and more similarities than differences in the mark types that we use. So for example, if we want to add dots at locations, we use geom_point in ggplot2, plot dot dot, the dot mark in observable plot. But otherwise, a lot of the like geom bar is plot.bar. So you see mostly similarities in namings of chart type 2, but just be aware that there are some things that differ slightly. So we can expect like the big picture structure to be really similar across from ggplot2 to observable plot, with some differences in punctuation and syntax, and sometimes there's differences in what things are actually named, but generally pretty similar across the board. So that is the only thing that we wanted to introduce, because we want to have plenty of time to do more fun stuff actually showing and working in notebooks. So I'm going to pass this off to Ananya to introduce you to how to get set up if you want to follow along today, to meet some data, and to show you a cool feature of Observable. So Ananya, take it away.
Yeah, you're still sharing screen? Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so let's jump in. We're going to be working together in this notebook. You see, that's me with like the beard in the green circle at the top right of the notebook, and Allison's in the yellow circle. Those are our avatars. But yeah, so we're going to be working in this notebook, and if you're familiar with the notebook environment, it's very much like that. And we have cells in here, and we're going to be exploring some of the survey data that many of you filled out, and we're going to be doing some plot visualizations using that. There are two ways you can participate. And the best option is you take this notebook, and I think that's the link will be shared in the chat. Allison, if you can actually open up that version, that'd be real cool, because we can show the show me thing in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there it is. Yeah. So yeah, the best way to participate is to fork this notebook. So at the top of the notebook and the header, you'll see the fork thing there. So when you fork it, it's yours, and then you can play along while we work through all of the activities. In fact, if you scroll down, Allison, to the first activity, I just want to show how you create a cell real quick. So it's like we have all of these activities listed in here, and you can just hit that plus button and create a JavaScript cell and work in there. And at any time, if you feel like you need a hint or you want to see where this is going, you can click on the little show me sections we have along with each activity. And there's the snippet of the code that we'll be working on the code is right there. So you can always kind of look in there. If you want, you can copy the code from there and paste it into the cell you're working on. So you have that helper there when you need it, and you can hide it if you don't. So yeah, that's the best way to work with us through this. You can, if you don't have an observable account, it's not going to let you fork until you create an account. If you don't have an account and you just want to follow along without having an account, you can still do all of the things that I just described. The only thing is it won't let you save your changes. So if you want to be able to save your changes, you will need to create an account. But otherwise, if you just want to tinker, you can do everything. You can still work, create cells. You can do all of that, but at the end, it will prompt you to either lose your changes or create an account to save them. So yeah, let's meet the data, Allison. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Meet the data.
Yep.
Okay. So here's the data. We call it Our Ladies. And the way we basically just attached a file, a CSV to it from the responses. And yep, there it is. And now we have, this is kind of like a snapshot of the data. You see it says 44 rows. That's how many responses we got back. I really like this thing that you're looking at. It's like a special cell. It's called the data table cell. It lets you, like quickly see look at the data in the spreadsheet form that we're so used to looking at data in. I love the column headers. They're auto-generated for you, so you can immediately kind of see the shape of the data. And the other neat thing is you can actually click. You can click on the header and it'll cross-filter. So just before the meeting started, we were having this conversation about the two kinds of pipes. So there's a native pipe which is apparently newer than the McGritter pipe. But you can see Allison's filtering. So the first thing you'll notice is we do have more fans of the McGritter pipe than the native pipe. Another thing we noticed is if you click on native pipe and you look at the column right next to it that's being cross-filtered, this opinion of whether data are, or whether either is fine. I think folks who use the native pipe seem to be maybe more okay with anything than folks who use the McGritter pipe seem to have stronger opinions. And I don't know if that means anything, but it was interesting.
It switches though, like the pattern switches when you click between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. So Allison and I had fun kind of just browsing through what's in some of the columns and reading stuff there, and just clicking around and filtering stuff. It was also fun to read the song lyrics. So today we're going to be using some of this. There's so much cool stuff in here. With the time we have today, we're going to kind of make a few simple plots. We also did some fun stuff with the journeys that folks take in their troubleshooting pathways. So we'll do a few things, but like Allison has said also, there's like so much cool stuff in here, and we're very excited to see if you folks come up with more visualizations maybe after this workshop. We'd love to see what you build. But yeah, so today we have a few simple things you can start off with, and yeah, go from there.
All right, cool. Thanks, Ananya. These are really fun to look at. So thanks to everybody who submitted survey responses. We're excited to keep building more, and yeah, please play with it and make stuff with it. If you want to, like if you're like, how do I get this data? You have access to this notebook, so you can actually download it too. You can either play in this notebook, but you can also see that from the data table cell, you can download the CSV, and then you can play with it however you want to. And we also hope that hopefully more people will respond to this survey so that we can continue adding to the amazing knowledge that we've gained from it about songs and quotes and pipe operators and everything else. All right, let's make our first chart in Observable Plot. Okay, so hopefully this gave folks also enough time to get set up, either forking if you have an observable account, or like Ananya said, you can work still alongside with us in Tinker mode. You will see if you're in Tinker mode a banner up top that lets you know, that says like, hey, you're in Tinker mode, like your changes won't be saved unless you fork, and that's fine. It's just giving you a heads up. So what we're going to do is we are going to first create a scatter plot of how many weekly hours people estimated they spend in our studio and the number of hex stickers that they have on their personal items. So let's see if there's any pattern related to this. Okay, so the way that we're going to do this is like working in our Markdown or Quarto, where all of the content that you create is in different cells. So we're going to do this in a new JavaScript cell, but we're not going to start from scratch. We're going to start using a plot snippet, which is a skeleton of code that we can then just update with the variables and data that we want to create a visualization for. So to do that, I'm going to click on, like Ananya was saying, to add a new cell, you click on this plus sign, and you can do this actually anywhere in the notebook. One thing that took me a while to not be kind of surprised every time is that cells in observable notebooks work topologically and not like top down linearly. So you can put your cells in whatever order you want. If like B depends on A, you can have A be the last cell in the appendix of your notebook, and B at the top of the notebook executes just fine. So that's part of what's called the observable reactive runtime that enables you to prioritize the organization of cells in a notebook. So we could do this anywhere, but I'm going to do it right under activity 1. So if I click on this plus sign, then the add cell menu comes up. You can see that you have the different options for the major cell types. So JavaScript, Markdown, HTML, You can also write SQL code in here, and there's a whole bunch of other specialty cell types. There's options for you to upload data, connect to databases, authorize and access cloud files. So there's a bunch of ways to get data, make tables out of the box, like the data table cell Ananya was showing. But there's also these plot snippets, and that's what we're going to use. A really nice thing about the add cell menu is it's searchable. So as soon as I click on that plus sign, the add cell menu comes up. And if we start typing then scatter plot, then you can see that this filters to whatever matches that option. So to show this one more time, if I click on this plus sign, it opens the add cell menu, and I can just start typing scatter plot. And it says, hey, there's an option from plot to insert a code snippet to create a scatter plot. So when I click on this, then what it's going to automatically do is two things. It automatically inserts a JavaScript cell, and it has added to it this placeholder code. Hey, all right, so this is great. So Ananya, I hope this is Ananya.
That's me.
Okay. It's like, oh no, we've got hacked, Ananya. So you can see this is really cool. So Ananya is adding comments. She could also write code here. Co-coding together in observable notebooks is truly like live synchronous multiplayer code editing. Like if you're like co-editing Google Docs, we could both be writing code here at the same time. And this avatar makes it really nice because you know exactly where everybody is in the notebook at all times, which is awesome. So like, I know Ananya is there because I see her wonderful bearded avatar that we have on our demo teams. And Ananya could be writing whatever code she wanted to. But here I have this actually totally functional code snippet. If I run this, and there's a couple ways you can run a cell in JavaScript or in a notebook, is you can either press this run cell button and that'll run it. So I can run it. I could see this, again, amazing cars scatter plot show up. You can also use shift return and that'll execute the current cell that you're in. But we don't want to look at the cars data. We want to look at our ladies data, and we want to plot up here hours in our studio on the x-axis, that's in lower snake case, and hex stickers on the y-axis. So since I already have this pre-populated code snippet, we can go ahead and just update that. So our data is our ladies. On the x-axis, I have hours in our studio, and on the y-axis, I have hex stickers. And when I plot this, then I can see a scatter plot with the dot mark of the different coordinates for hours that people estimate they spend in our studio, and the number of hex stickers that they have on their personal items. So a couple things just as a reminder, what is this doing and how does this map onto ggplot code? This plot.plot initializes the plot, just like saying ggplot at the beginning of ggplot code does. Marks are saying this is where we're specifying the type of mark. That would be like the geoms in ggplot code. Plot.dot would be like saying geom underscore point. So this is the version of the mark. And then I give it the data and the variables that I want to plot. So let's say I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But Ananya, you know what I would really love is I would really love if you could color code this so that the fill color is based on pipe choice. So fill color is based on pipe. And I'm going to say, and so that the size is based on hours in our studio also. Not that this would be the most functional changes you would, this is not a best practices in data visualization workshop. But let's say that this is what I have asked Ananya to do. Then you can see this is Ananya typing now right alongside me, and just adding that fill option right within that plot.dot mark, kind of like you would add it within the geom point mark. So now I can see the point color changes. You can set these to either constant values, like right now, Ananya just set that radius value to 10 to make the points bigger. Now Ananya's updating the opacity to be slightly translucent. Yep, I think that's the right word.
Mhm.
And you can see, you can just keep building like more and more customization right within Plot. Then I'm like, thanks, Ananya, this is fantastic. So this is just an example to show that, like, one, using plot snippets can give you a quick way to create a code skeleton that then you can update with your own data and variables. And two, that the pieces of this code that you have to update and that exist in this plot code are really, really similar to the pieces of code that you would include to customize a ggplot chart, right? This would just be the same as having, like, fill would be the same, R would be size, opacity would be alpha, and then with some syntax changes, same code to do both things. All right. Also, I don't think we said, but like, if anybody has questions at any point, please feel free to chime in. If we need to go over something again, let us know. So feel free to raise hands, or we'll have
Oh, cool. We have a hand raise.
Oh, okay. Both of us had questions at the same time. Anyway, so I was wondering if the sort of order of things mattered. So you put your data within plot dot. Like, can you put it into plot sort of similarly to how one would do in ggplot with like the global option, or does it always go within the marks plot call?
Good question. As far as I know, and Ananya, feel free to correct me, marks, there's different ways to write plot code. One that starts explicitly with, like, that's like a shorthand version that only starts with the mark. If you write it this way, where you're initializing the plot, I think it always goes within marks. Ananya, is that?
So the one interesting thing, and I just to say I've not used ggplot before, so it's hard for me, but to compare. But one thing that's nice about plot is each mark you can use a different data set in each mark within the same plot. So and sometimes we, like, maybe sometimes you want to add a certain kind of text mark that maybe is a different data set because the labels are somewhere else. And sometimes it's nice to be able to do that. So in that case, it helps that the data is actually specified inside the mark, because every mark can have its own data set, really.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I had questions just on, this is so cool first off, but also I just had questions on like the functionality of the notebook itself.
Yeah.
I ended up like putting the code chunk where I didn't want it, and then I was trying to move it and I couldn't figure it out, so I just created a new one and deleted the old one. But is there a way to move it up and down or slide it around?
There is. Great question. There's a couple different ways. One way is if you go to the 3-dot menu for the cell, you can grab it and then you can drag it to wherever you want in the notebook. So that's one way, but actually this sets me up to show like other really cool things. There's also keyboard shortcuts. So if I do like option down with this selected, then I can move it down, or option up, I can move it up. Another thing that's super cool is on the right hand side, there's this mini map. So the mini map pane shows you not only all of the different cells in the notebook, but also how they depend on each other. So right now, what this is showing is that we have this cell that we're in right now, plot.plot. So it's highlighted, and it even shows the little avatar of who else is there. But this is showing that depends on the R ladies data. And if I then grab this in the mini map, then I can drag that wherever else I wanted to in the notebook. So I could, pull this down here, and then it'll move it down lower, but I'll move it back up to activity 1. So the mini map is a really cool way to not only like show all the different pieces of the notebook, but also show all the dependencies, and also gives you I think underused way to move things around wherever you want to in a notebook, especially as they get bigger in size.
So cool.
That's
Thank you for
really
that.
cool. There's a question in the chat from Daphne asking, how did you read the data?
Oh, yeah.
Ananya, you want to take this one?
Yeah, for this particular thing, we have the survey, we just attached it. So you see the little paper clip on the top right side of the notebook. And we basically just dragged and dropped that CSV attachment into that pane. But there are many other ways you could you could add data to a notebook. So you can attach CSVs or JSONs, GeoJSONs, image files. But then you can also use cloud files. You can connect to something you have in Google Cloud or Microsoft Cloud. The nice thing about that is, like, say I have some CSV, some Google Sheet, and if I update the Google Sheet and I have the cloud file coming into the notebook, the updates just they automatically it automatically updates the data in the notebook as well. You don't have to reattach that. It's like a live link. And then, of course, we have a bunch of different database connectors you can use, from Snowflake to Postgres, MySQL, BigQuery, yeah. And the other neat thing is, I mean, you can bring data or code in from any other notebook as well, simply by basically you write an import statement. So that's another neat way to bring either data or some kind of function module code into your notebook.
Yeah, that's a really cool one. Actually, Ananya, can you think of is like the sunburst chart observable? Is that a good one? This might be a good one to show. Okay, cool. So it's okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for that overview. And just to show what Ananya was just talking about, this is a chart that I did not make. This is an interactive zoomable sunburst chart that Mike Bostock made using D3. And if I wanted to like pull this over into my notebook, then what I could do, since it has a name, is I could import this into my notebook. So the way that I do that is in this notebook, in a JavaScript cell, I can write import the name of the cell that I want to import, which in this case was just called chart. And then I give it the slug for that notebook, which in this case it's anything after the @ symbol. Then if I put that here, then what this does then what this is going to do is that makes this instantly available for me. Then if I call chart, then this is in my notebook. Then I have access to this. And what's really cool about that is not only does that allow you to like modularize the way that you work so that you can like store commonly used functions in one notebook or data sets or text even or chart skeletons that you and your team might use and then just import them with one line into other notebooks. But there's also ways that you can use import with, which lets you import like this chart, for example, but say, I want you to import this chart, but create it with this different data set, which means that then you would have a new zoomable sunburst chart show up that was using a different data set that maybe you had attached and wrangled in your notebook. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is good.
Definitely you had your
and in fact, if you go back to that zoomable sunburst, I think if you click on that's the 3 dots, there's an option you can copy import. So that just kind of copies that statement for you to paste into.
I totally forgot about that. Thanks, Ananya.
Yeah.
I completely forgot. There's a copy import button. Thank you.
Yeah, they both work.
Cool.
And just for fun, for that earlier question, I wanted to show the question about whether the data is global. I just got this is a completely meaningless visualization, but just to demonstrate that really every mark can have its own data. And they're going to share the X and Y. So sometimes it's totally meaningless, like in this case, but other times it can be interesting.
Before we move on to the next section, Daphne, did you have a question still, or did you figure that out?
My thing wasn't loading, and I realized it was because I used a lowercase L for ladies, and
Happens all the time.
You know, it's after
always
5. The work days happen. Thanks for checking there, y'all. I appreciate it, and thanks for going over all the cool ways to read in the data. Should have checked for typos first.
We also have one more question in the chat. Does that import work exactly as the ES6 standard. I'm not sure what that means, but maybe either of you have an idea.
Ananya, do you have any?
I don't, but I can find out.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's a good question. We'll send it in our follow-up response to that. Thanks for the question.
I just opened our introduction to our introduction to imports notebook, and it starts with something like the ES imports. So I have a feeling it does, but I'll send you that notebook.
Cool.
To follow up.
Thanks, Ananya.
Okay.
All right. So it feels pretty like how it's built, right? Pretty similar to ggplot2 customization. Yeah, similar to ggplot2. So yeah, you can play around with that one. For the next one, we're going to move on to activity 2, which is going to be building a histogram with Observable Plot and making it interactive. So we're actually, I think, Ananya, do you want to co-code this one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So,
all right.
Yeah, so I'm going to hit the plus and just type histogram chart. And actually, do you want to do that, Allison, since you're sharing screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So this one, so again, Ananya is starting by hitting that plus sign, typing histogram to sort through the add cell menu. And then when you select that one, it's going to insert a JavaScript cell with a code skeleton in it to create a histogram. This actually, I'll say, is one way where the where Observable Plot actually adheres more to marks not explicit chart types than ggplot does, right? Because in ggplot, there's geom histogram. But what that actually is doing is combining multiple things for you, where it's automatically built in binning and reducing by count. And so that's why what you see here is actually that broken up into the different marks that explicitly do that under the hood in ggplot2, which is bin the data, count how many times each thing shows up within each bin, and then make a rectangle of that height. So that I just want to highlight, like, that is one thing where it's actually closer to using marks rather than chart types versus the ggplot2 version. Yeah, sorry, Ananya, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, I was kind of thinking the scatter plot we made, we have some overlapping dots and stuff, so it would be fun to do a histogram so we can really see how hex stickers and hours in our studio are related. So yeah, I took that snippet, I replaced it with our ladies data. And then in X now we want to use hours. Sorry, there you go. Hours in our studio. And just if I just do that much, so it's already kind of computing a basic histogram. And the interesting thing about plot is if you don't specify everything, it uses certain defaults, right? So for example, the width of the bin or the interval is predefined here, but I can specify it to be something, I don't know, maybe 5, and that changes the width of the intervals there. What else we could do? We can do fill by hex stickers. Let's see. So that kind of, because everything is grouped into these bars, but it shows us how that's distributed by, if you fill it by hex stickers. This color is kind of, this is like, I think by default it uses the turbo color scheme, but that's something we can change. So let's say we want to use a different scheme, like rainbow, maybe. Oh yeah, missing comma. So the thing about rainbow though, and it's pretty easy to add a legend. I have to say is legend true. And I have to not forget the comma. The thing about that I don't like about the rainbow color bar is it starts and ends. It's circular, so it's hard to see if you're really small on the scale or really big. So maybe how about something else like that maybe? And if we want, maybe we want the lighter colors to be smaller, then we can do something like reverse. We can just say reverse true, and that'll flip the colors.
Cool. I realized, Ananya, after we said we were going to co-code, I was like, then everybody's going to miss the adding interactivity part.
Oh yeah. Let's no, that's fair. I just I was wondering if you wanted to pause on this bin rect thing for the inside of the histogram mark.
Yeah. So what this is doing again is this is breaking down, instead of saying explicitly like we're creating a histogram. Instead, you are manually writing the marks that are needed to create that, and the calculation that's needed to actually do that. So if you think about what a histogram is doing, it's not like taking values of data and plotting them in space. It's reducing them somehow, and the way that it's reduced is by counting observations within different bins. So that's what this breaks up into two separate pieces. Again, what ggplot2 does in one piece, which is here. You might be thinking like, but this is more code than geom histogram, which is true, but it also actually means that you can combine these with more flexibility to create different chart types that have like different bin widths along the x-axis. For example, what is that? Is that a Marimekko? Anyway, like you have more flexibility and control over the reducer that you use. So in this case, it uses count by default, but this could be like sum, mean, max, whatever. So you can decide, you have more control over what that reducer is, that things are binned within those bins. And then outside of that is where you say like, and with that bin data using this reducer of count, I want you to create this mark from it. And in this case, that's make a vertical rectangle from it. So it's splitting up the like what's oftentimes binned into one thing into the actual explicit marks and binning to do it, which gives you some more control over the like types of customization you can do with it. Ananya, do you want to add to that?
No, that was really good. That was awesome.
All right. Okay. Any questions so far on this?
I have a question. Can you comment out code in the code chunks? How?
So one way to comment out, so you can do 2 forward slashes that comments out the line. Another thing I've seen is like if you put void in front of a plot mark, I'm pretty sure that that'll kind of, it's not the same as commenting, but say I have multiple marks in here. I'm going to if you scroll back up and say I add that silly cars data set in there. Hold on, give me just 1 second. Scatter plot. So if I go back up here and I do that thing, if I say void in front of it, it'll remove that that plot dot. So it's not the same as commenting, but it's another way. And that way you don't have to comment out all of the lines inside of that plot mark. It just it'll void that entire mark for you. And if another way to comment out multiple lines, just if you want to arbitrarily comment out a set of lines, is to do, I think it's /* and then you repeat that pattern at the end, and it comments out that chunk. If you scroll down, Allison, to the next one, so /* and */ that pattern, anything that it encloses will get commented out.
Cool, thank you.
All right, should we add some interactivity to this?
Yeah,
Let's do it. All right. this is one of the things where I was like, I felt a lot of relief that making a chart interactive could feel like this, which has not always been my experience making interactive charts. So we're going to use observable inputs. Observable inputs are lightweight user interface elements. Sometimes they're called widgets. That let a user make selections, pick ranges, add text, whatever. So we're going to use, that's what observable inputs are. You can also create your own inputs. They're created, in JavaScript, so you can make your own pretty quickly. But the way that we're going to do that is let's say Ananya is like, Allison, what would be really cool is if instead of having this hard-coded in bin width of 5, instead, I would really like the user to be able to select what this bin width is, because that's going to reveal all kinds of amazing insights that we would not otherwise see from this data. So the way that I'm going to do that is, this is going to be 2 steps. I'm going to create this input, and then it's going to have a name that stores the value of the current selection of that input. And then I'm just going to call that name back in the plot code to update the interval so that it's not just 5, so that it's the current value stored in that input. So here's what that looks like. If you're following along, I want this to be right above my chart. So I'm going to click on this add cell menu directly above the chart. I'm going to start typing range because I know that there's a range slider. There's also radio buttons, drop-down menus, text inputs, kind of like the standards that you would imagine exist. But I'm going to choose this range slider. So, and again, once I select that, it automatically populates with this actual functional code. And when I run that with shift return or by pressing that play button, then you can see that what it creates is this user interface element, which you can slide the values along. What's happening here? This is a pre-built input that ranges from the extent of this array, which currently is from 0 to 100. It has a label that can prompt a user that will change, and it has a step size. It also has this name called range here. That's what we're going to actually call later on in our plot code to have our plot be updated. So here, and I could see that Ananya is making changes, which is great. I'm going to change this name to something more informative. So maybe I'll change this. I'm going to change this range to pick, or maybe I'll just say bin width. And then Ananya is updating that range to go from 1 to 20. We'll keep the step size at 1. So 2 things are happening here. The end value that Ananya is changing, that's the default. That'll be like when a person first comes to the page, that's the default selection until a user changes it. 2 things are happening here that are of equal importance. The first is this view of makes this actually show up. Like it actually creates the widget and it makes it show up as an interactive element in the UI. But the second thing that it does is it's also storing a value for you. And the value is stored to this name of this input. So just to show you what's happening here, if I insert a new JavaScript cell and just call back bin width, which I named this thing, then it'll return the current value for that slider. So like as I change this, then live, that is going to be updated, which means that this gives me a tool to instantly connect that widget's value by the name to whatever plot element I want to be dependent on it. It could be something that you include in text where the value changes based on a user selection. So you can call that wherever else you would want to use it in your notebook. So let's go ahead and do this. Oh yeah, so Ananya will show a little template literal where you can call your JavaScript code. This would be equivalent to when you're writing in our markdown, for example, if you have your backticks in a lowercase r, that you can actually pull values from your R code right into your markdown. So you can see that Ananya has written that, and then that text will automatically change. So there's interactive text already. Cool. Yeah. We could clap. I mean, every time I see this, I'm like, it just works. Okay. So now what we're going to do though is we're going to actually have instead of having our bin width be hard coded as 5, then I can say, hey, Ananya. Oh, and I'll just show you that I could do this because this is cool. Another thing that's really cool is you can leave comments right in notebooks that the person you're working with will be notified of. So if I add a comment here, and I think this is nice because like if you have teammates who like don't know how to submit or have conversations in GitHub issues, right? This feels very much like adding comments in Google Docs or whatever. So I could say like, hi, Ananya, maybe we can update bin widths based on the bin width input. I leave a comment. It says when it was written, it says that I was the one who wrote it. Ananya will get a notification, and then Ananya can go in here and change this code to update this interval.
Yep, I'm still responding to your comments.
Cool. Okay, so then you can see just like instant responses. I think this is nice because it's just like in notebook, not back and forth outside of the notebook that you're working in, where you can have conversations. Then you can delete these if you want, but there's like no delay. And now I can see Ananya's avatar in here updating the interval so that it's not based on that constant. All that she's doing is saying like, hey, this should be the current value of that bin width input. And then when she's done that, then we can see that now this is an interactive chart. So it's 2 steps. It's you create an input, you give it a name, the name stores the current value, and then you call that name wherever else you want to use it, and then your chart's interactive, which honestly is like pretty awesome. So that's a little introduction to inputs and comments. And again, there's a whole bunch of different types of inputs that you could use. If you look at the add cell menu and just start typing input, you can see like button inputs, checkboxes, change colors, date inputs. So there's a whole bunch of pre-built ones, and you can create your own with just a little bit of JavaScript. So inputs are pretty nice for interactive charts or text or tables or whatever.
And another thing about the inputs is when you're changing them, that value actually, it's not persisting across everybody's notebooks. It's like local to your browser. So it's almost like everyone who's interacting with this notebook is having their own data exploration experience in some way. And if you set up these, if you have your data and you set up like some simple inputs like drop downs or range selectors, and then you kind of you can let folks kind of slice and dice the data different ways, and can be really neat way to explore together.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'll add is the lightweightness of sharing this with other people. It's made on the web, like this notebook is a web page. And that if I wanted to be able to share this interactive chart with somebody, like if we're like brainstorming about like, what does the data contain? What do we want to do with it? What are the major patterns? What that looks like is you go up to this button up here that says share, and then you choose who has access, like if it's publicly available or if people on your team can share it or if they can edit it. And then you just like, you can make a custom link and then you just press share and send them the URL. And that's it. And then they can see your interactive notebook, which is really nice because that's like a quick way that, like sometimes I'm like, I don't really know what a server is. So that makes it hard when I'm like talking about deploying things, right? But I think this is like, I'm just sharing this, like my notebook is a web page. The other thing that's really nice about that is that if you're having discussions and let's say the person you shared it with is like, interesting, but I would also like to see this, instead of you being like, okay, I'm going to go back, like update my script, push my changes, redeploy. Okay, now I've sent you an email that you can see it an hour later. I go in here, edit it, they refresh it, and it's updated. Like it's just a URL that they're clicking on, which I think is pretty nice. All right. Yeah, Sam.
This might be a silly question, but like my whole world exists between like my local computer and GitHub, and like that's how I know things to exist and be shareable. So do you not need GitHub? Is everything like hosted through Observable's like platforms, or you don't need GitHub really to share with one another? Or like how does that fit into the equation, or if at all, or if it's just any insight?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So we've been making cells, right? So anything that you type into the cell is hosted on our Heroku. But when you execute a cell, that lives on your browser, and so the stuff that you see above it is local to your browser. And the code is stored on Heroku. So and things that you would get with Git, like version control, for example, are just built in. So if I really mess up this notebook by overlaying cars on top of everything that Allison is doing, she can just go back into the history panel and just revert to the previous, more meaningful version.
Wow, that's so cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
This is pretty amazing.
You can also, we talked a little bit about forking in the beginning. Once you fork a notebook, you also have the option to suggest it back to the original and merge your changes. So all of those things that people are pretty familiar with in the Git world are kind of already built in. Yeah.
So cool. Thank you.
That was a great question, Sam. That's not silly at all. What do you think, Ananya? Do we have time for a word cloud?
Yeah, let's do the word cloud, or do you want to skip to the cooler thing at the end? Just the troubleshooting
when you
pathway.
say it like that, let's skip to the cooler thing.
Well, I guess that the reason we had the word cloud in here is we kind of wanted to talk about this import thing, right? Like, and we showed, I guess Allison showed you earlier, you could import a viz. In this case, we're actually importing a function. So, if you want to write your stuff in a modular way and not have everything in one huge notebook, and you want to reuse components. So in this case, we have this function that creates a word cloud. And it's in a different notebook. So we just imported it in from there, and we're passing our own data to the function. And it's going to create a word cloud of of how people feel when they're cleaning messy data. I love that rewarding is the
Me too. Amongst like despair and frustration, like rewarding shines through.
I mean, this must be though at the end of the cleaning process or something. It's gotta be. Yeah. But there's other stuff in there too. Like there's definitely tedium. There's panic.
Also just regex. Just that is my feeling about it.
Yeah. Wow, I love somebody said calming. I wonder if is that sarcasm, you think? I don't know. Well, I guess it can be
a little bit, right?
It
could be kind of feel a little bit cathartic.
Yeah.
Your data. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's get to the cooler stuff. All right, so we just want to like show a couple of ways that we visualized and explored this data. Again, we have more to do. We hope other people will do more. We hope we have more responses to the survey. But this was a question that I really liked was, there's that famous Phil Carlton quote, there are only two hard things in computer science, cache invalidation and naming things. So we asked folks to update that with blank and naming things. And then we just made this little interactive text that actually shows the different things people wrote. So like, remember how to format ggplot2 legends. Totally relatable. Every time I'm going to be Googling that. Keeping track of parentheses, updating R, ggplot themes, for loops. For loops was mentioned a number of times here. Yeah, so this was like a fun way to both add like an input to update text that shows up to explore the different reactions. Ananya, do you want to talk about this next one? I think this is the let's do the troubleshooting pathways.
Yeah, let's do the troubleshooting pathways.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
So Allison, what was the question? I'm going to read the question once real quick. The
Yeah.
question says, what path describes your pattern for troubleshooting stubborn errors? You can repeat steps.
Yes. So this is where we had, there is an image that shows like 1 through 10, which are actually, if you hover over this, those show what those different options are. So there's little tooltips added here that align with the different steps. So then people could write in like the sequence of steps they sometimes follow.
And yeah, and I just want to say how this came together. It was a few of our colleagues, we get together a couple of times a week for this thing called database pairing, where we just bring something interesting and we kind of hang out together on a video call like this and in one notebook. And this came together during that, what was like, what, 40 minutes or something of everybody doing stuff together. And it ended up looking like this. It was really fun.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Ananya.
Yeah, so I guess some part of it was just figuring out what kind of visualization do we use to kind of see something like this. And somebody said, oh yeah, like pathways, maybe arrows, and then that led to arrow chart. And what we're showing here is, so the green circles are all of the various steps you could be in. And then the arrows, of course, show the paths people took. But then the weight of the arrow is how many times their path was taken in a response. And so I think we did get the feeling that there was a lot of back and forth and repeating, but I think, Allison, which one was the one you liked best, where you go to the New Hope with the little bulb, but then you return to the, I really thought that was it.
It's this one. I love it so much. We were cracking up making this. We called this the path of lost hope. We're like, you're so pumped. You're like, I know this is it. And then it still doesn't work. And then this arrow just takes you sadly back to like, really, really thought that was it. And then you're back into like doom spiral. But some other amazing ones too. Like 1 or 2 people are like, a new hope. Back to zombie meltdown. Or like, I did it. Never mind. So it was just really fascinating to see. The other thing we did that's anonymized, but that cracked me up. Do you want to talk about this, Ananya?
Oh yeah. If you use that range slider up, you can see individual responses. And the thing we did here is, at first, we thought everybody starts in the beginning, but we've circled here the places people start. Sometimes people start in a very happy place and end up in a not so happy place. So I think that's one thing we learned when we kind of let's look at one response at a time. Yeah. This person started at the very end, really. And then you end up going back and forth a couple of times in a loop somewhere in the middle. And some others are like more linear paths, like slowly going from the left to the right. So that was interesting. But I mean, I just want to kind of point out that, again, this was just to highlight again how composable observable plot is. Like all you're seeing is the arrows were made with plot.arrow. The little green monsters, those are Allison's creations. And what they are is really a plot.image. Yeah. So it lets you insert an image corresponding to each of the, and this is actually an example where the different marks have different data sets. So for example, plot.arrow is using the data set that has the links, whereas the plot.image it's basically just an array of all of the images associated with each of those states a user can be in. So this is, yeah, I could have just used this instead of that silly overlaying cars on top of it. Yeah, and there's so yeah, there's the images, there's the arrows, the weighting of the arrows by something that's in the data, then being able to filter the data within the plot by when Allison was playing with the range slider, it was basically filtering out the responses and showing one filtered result. And that was also happening inside of plot. So it's very interesting how far you can take things, and you can just add stuff, one over the other, and you can, it's really enjoyable to see how far you can go because of how composable it is. In fact, I don't know, you mentioned Tanya Shapiro earlier. I don't know if you wanted to show her Supreme Court notebook that just came out that's also using Plot.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that. And I looked at that, I thought this has to be something super custom, but
Let's see if we can
yeah.
find it. There we
That
go.
one.
Yeah.
So I think this is something she had originally made in R, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so she's been recreating some of her R stuff here. It's neat to see.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what she's doing. And I find it really helpful to see those translations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. I think anything else we wanted to show, Ananya? I think those were the main ones. And otherwise, we just wanted to leave some time for questions or say hi or whatever. But am I missing anything, Ananya?
I don't think so. I think, yeah. If anybody has any questions, that would be great.
I have a question. I guess more directed to Allison, since you come from the R world. What was the biggest challenge for starting to adopt JavaScript, and what was the one thing that really helped you get over the first major hurdle in really learning this new language?
That's a really good question. What helped me, because I do think this kind of thing, because most of this is similar, but then every once in a while you'll come across something like this, right? That's like what is this doing? And so there's some JavaScript basics that are super helpful. I think what I started with, which was not what I would do now, is I'm going to get a JavaScript textbook and I'm going to read it, which one is not how I like to learn. And two, ended up with a lot of noise that wasn't immediately relevant to helping me get started working with data. So what I started looking for instead was people who are doing examples of data wrangling in JavaScript where they had commented their code, where it was just here's what map does. Because another thing that I found hard, which is motivating some of the work that I'm doing now, is I would look up array map, which is a way to iterate over elements in an array and return something different. And it would be array map iterates over element in an array. And it'd be if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 in an array, you can multiply them all by 2. And I'm that's cool, but mine are in an array of objects with different variables, and some of them are nulls, and I'm trying to also change the name and separate this thing. So that's great, I get that, but it was too much of a jump for me to get to here's what it actually looks like in the real world. So I started looking for and watching videos of people walking through and explaining what they were actually doing for real world projects, and I found that really helpful. Another thing that's so I can share a bunch of resources that I think are helpful. We're trying to make resources for translating from R or Python to JavaScript, so it doesn't feel like you're starting from scratch, because that helped me too. There's a library in JavaScript called Arcaro, which if you know dplyr, you can use Arcaro out of the box. So I looked for things that felt similar for me to get started as a starting point, and then at least I could do my essential data wrangling while I got started. And so I'm excited to like build and see more stuff like that. That's like, hey, if this is your starting point, here's the 5 things you should know about working with data in JavaScript, not a whole textbook. Because I stand by that, like 90% of what I need to do to make visualizations and work in JavaScript requires me like really understanding like 5 things. It's like if I understand map and the different ways to use it, I can do like 8 different wrangling essentials. So I think I would have focused my learning more on things to work with data rather than JavaScript programming essentials, which are great, but yeah. That was a long-winded answer.
That was
but
great.
happy
Thank
to
you.
chat more.
No, it was awesome. And Ananya also just shared in the chat, it looks like a notebook or an article by Paul, is it Buffa? Is that his name? Learn just enough JavaScript. So might be a place to start too.
It's like when you find out you can learn 3 chords and play a bunch of songs.
Yeah.
And then when you start feeling like that joy or feeling of accomplishment, that motivates you to learn more rather than starting with the first page of, I guess different people learn differently, but this is another approach.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, the learn just enough, I think, is like in general a good one for me.
Mhm.
Daphne? Do you have your,
Thank you. I was trying to find the freaking raise hand button. I was like, where is it? There's like 5 buttons and I couldn't find it. Hi. Is there a way to like to minimize a code snippet or chunk? I don't know what like the code cells without unpinning them. And if you unpin it, like I just did it, just went back to the previous version, but like, what is unpinning like really doing?
Great question. Yeah. So when you're inside the cell and what unpinning does is basically if you just go somewhere else, it's going to minimize it at that time. And but if you're inside the cell and you're working in the cell and you unpin it, it won't do anything. It'll stay open. If you click away from that cell and you're not focusing that cell anymore, then it will. So unpinning is like, okay, I intend to not show this when I'm not in the cell working on it. And then if you click on when you have something unpinned and you click on the 3 dots and you say edit, it'll open it for you temporarily to work inside it. Again, when you click away, it'll automatically hide. So that's what unpinning does. There's another thing, you can even do the reverse of that. So if you scroll down, Allison, to where we have all of those debug cells, so sometimes you want to hide the code. Sometimes you want to hide the output instead of the code. So for example, somewhere in the bottom of this notebook, we have all of these cells. I think if you scroll up a little bit, Allison,
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm trying to find where we put them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
I
here.
see.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, if you open those, these are all unpinned, and that's why they were. But you will see here you have something. You have a file attachment and a .url, and you're bringing that in. So in this case, maybe it's I don't think the output is really useful to look at. So another thing you could do is when you click on a cell, there's a little menu that appears at the bottom, and then there's an eye. And if you click on that, it does the reverse. It'll actually hide the output and it'll show you just the code cell. Sometimes that's more useful. And that's kind of the opposite.
Yeah, and as far as I know, I don't think there's a way to like for your entire notebook set. There's not like a YAML where you can do the equivalent of like echo false to hide all of the cells. As far as I know, I think it's the pinning and unpinning or hide the cell outputs on a per cell basis.
Oh yeah, but definitely stay tuned. I mean, that's something that we hear a lot from our users about some sort of a presentation mode where, I only want to show something and I don't want to show everything else. So yeah, the team is constantly working on new stuff. So stay tuned.
Cool. Thanks, y'all.
I had a question. Hey, I was wondering if you could chat a little bit about like exporting graphs or adding them to websites or anything like that.
Ananya, I feel like you would nail this.
Oh my gosh.
I'm happy to take it, but I could, yeah.
Yeah, so there are a few different ways, like some folks will you can basically download the entire notebook. Anything you build here, you can take outside. There are many different ways of doing it. You can download the whole code and it'll create a tarball for you that you can take somewhere else. You can install a notebook as an NPM module inside a React app, for example. You can also do a live embed using either an iframe or a JavaScript live embed. That basically if you change the notebook, so if you download it or exported something like that, if you change the notebook, it doesn't change the embed. But if you do a live embed through our API, that's an option where if you update something in the notebook, you could have that automatically update your embed if you wanted to. So yeah, there are definitely many different ways of taking what you build here outside. And some folks, Brent, like to create a viz here that you embed somewhere. And sometimes people will prototype modules that they kind of then export or install in their React app. So, but for example, Allison, if you name one of those, yeah, you can click on the 3 dots so we can show you a real quick one. My gosh, I really feel like I should remove the cars from there.
Never.
But you can select the entire notebook, or you could select a particular cell as long as it's named. Oh, is this notebook private?
I think so.
Okay, so when we're talking about private notebooks, yeah, let's go into the one that's.
I'll just make this unlisted.
Yeah, you can embed a private notebook too, but then you have a notebook key associated with it for security. In this, if you have a public notebook or a public unlisted notebook, you can just click embed and select something. And then, so if you scroll down, yeah, and that's another nice thing. So if in this case, if Allison selects, you can select an input element and you can select the viz. It's almost like a mini data app. And then if you scroll all the way down, it gives you a little code snippet that you can use somewhere if you want. You can, for now, Allison, if you just copy the URL, just say copy URL and just open another tab and paste the URL in there. Yep.
Ta-da! And I didn't copy the right interactive thing. Let me do that actually, so you could see like what actually happens, because this was not a great example. But for example, here is my interactive, the interactive chart that Ananya and I made. So I'll give this a name that's like interactive histogram. So I've named it. The input already has a name. So as long as these are named, then if I go to embed here, I can choose interactive histogram and the input that adds interactivity to it. Then I'll just copy the URL, and then this could go in my website or my document or whatever, and the interactivity is maintained, which is pretty nice.
Sweet, that's really cool. Thanks.
This has been great. It's really awesome. Thank you for presenting and sharing.
We were just saying, it feels like you all have thought of everything. like all of the best features of the different platforms and tools we use regularly are like somewhere present in these notebooks and behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. It's really cool.
Awesome.
We think so.
Any last questions? We were like 1 minute before the top of the hour. If not, we'll do one final round of applause for our amazing guests. Thank you both so much. This was so fun. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. And I feel like I need to start learning
Yeah.
how to use these notebooks and like teaching some of this stuff where I can. It's really, really neat and obviously like incredibly engaging for anyone who sees you just bouncing around that cool notebook. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you again so much for having us. We will send follow-up resources and our contact information to Camilla and Danielle and Sam and Anne, who can send it out to you all. So don't hesitate to reach out. Hopefully it's clear that me and Ananya are happy to talk about Observable and play around in notebooks all the time. So yeah, please do reach out and we'll send those along.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
and just as a last thought, I pasted in a link that's a gallery of plot examples, and this is from Observable, but of course the community is building cool stuff all the time. But it's like a nice gallery that you can skim through and just to get an idea of what's possible, and new stuff is always coming up. Like so.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah, we'll include this with the resources that you share with us afterwards. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you all for attending and be on the lookout for the next Our Ladies meetup invite.
Cool.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye,
Thanks.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
You.
Oh, hopefully
I
we're
think you have to stop.
wait,
Oh.